This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, hi friends. In today's session, we are going to discuss about Git and GitHub. So first, what is Git and what is GitHub? So Git is a version control system and GitHub is a repository where you can store your files. And GitHub is a cloud-based repository. So you can push your files to your GitHub repository whenever it's required. So first, what is Git? So Uh, in today's session, we are going to discuss about Git and GitHub. So first thing is, what is Git? So Git is a version control system. So what is version control system? So a way to manage your files and directories to track the changes over a time. And by using Git, you can recall your previous version. So that is the advantage of your version control system. So let us assume, so why we require a version control system? So here one developer is there who is working on a file called A. So this is a file name, and here he is writing some code. So he's writing one method m1. So open brace, close brace, something he has written. So here he has written some code. Now, so after writing this code, because multiple developers are working on the same project, so he is not supposed to keep his code in his local system. So he has to move to some repository. So what he will do is he will commit his code. So what will happen? So whenever you are installing Git, a local repository will be created, and in this local repository the code will be committed. Now, so whenever you are making some commit, so one snapshot will be created by your Git. So whenever you are committing your file, so this file is presented it in your local. If you are keeping your project in your local, so it's of no use. So you need to move this code to some repository. So first we are talking about Git, not about GitHub. So first, Git is a version control system. So what is versioning? So now whenever you are making some commit, so what your Git will do is it will create one snapshot for your each commit. So one snapshot with some ID will be created. And now for the same file, what I'm doing is so after some time I thought that this implementation is not correct. So again, I'm making some changes to the same file. A, class A, open brace, close brace. Now I'm having one method m1 in this class. So previously I implemented something. Now after that I came to know that that logic is not correct and I have implemented something else. Now now I'm not supposed to keep this. So previously this was my commit. Now after some time the business logic is got changed, business requirement is got changed, and you made some changes on the same existing file. Now so my coding is completed and I am not supposed to keep the code in my local. So what I will do is again I will commit the code to my local repository. So now whenever I'm committing, for each commit one snapshot with unique ID will be created. So now in the previous commit I have committed this code, and in now in my present commit, I have committed this code. So two commits will be created and the data will be stored. So for previous commit, this file will be stored in my repository, and for current commit, this file is also stored into my Git local repository. This is local repository. Whenever you are making some commit, Git commit, so the code will be stored at your local repository. This is your local repository, not remote repository. So it's a local repository, so the code will move. So now with this file, how many commits I have done? So two commits I have made. So now for the same file, suppose for the same file, I'm adding one more method. So class A. So previous method is M1 and open brace close brace, and now I'm adding one more method M2 open brace close brace. So now if I'm making the commit for this file, so another commit will be done, and these three files will have a different snapshot, and in your repository these three files will be stored. Tomorrow I want to revert to this file. I don't want this logic. So I want this file. So if you're not using version control system, what will happen? So only one file is going to store. But if you are using a version control system, so what will happen? So whenever you are making some commit, so by using Git, so for each change, it will create one snapshot. A unique ID will be created for each commit. So if you are making 10 commits on the same file, so 10 snapshots will be stored in your repository. Tomorrow, I want to revert back to the previous version. Then what you can do is directly revert to the file with the commit ID. So now after committing this, I want to get this code, this commit code. If I'm not using version controlling system, what will happen? So the previous changes won't be there, but by using version control system, so what version control system will do is it will maintains all your commits. So what are the changes you have made for each commit will be stored in your repository by using a snapshot. So tomorrow, if you want to get my previous commit code, so I want to get this commit changes. So if you are not using version control system, you won't get this back. But if you are using version control system, so it will maintains the all the commits of your previous versions. So you can revert back to that version and you can get the code. So that is the use of version control system. So Git is a one of the version control system. Not so for so simply version control system will maintains all your commits. So first time I have added this logic, I have made some commit, and on the same file I have added some more logic and I made a commit, and here same file I am added m1 method, m2 method, and I have made a commit. So now this particular file A, how many commits I will have? 3 commits. So 3 snapshots will be created, and each snapshot you will have that particular commit code. So if you want to revert back to the previous commit, yes, you can revert back. So in the first commit, I have done these code changes, but after 10 days, I want to have this logic. So without version control system, it may not be possible. So if you are using a version control system, yes, you can revert back to that commit. So you will get your previous commit code. So that is the use of version control system. So Git is a version control system. So what is version control system? A way to manage files and directories. So track changes over a time. So it will track the changes. So what are the changes you are committing? So for each commit, one snapshot will be created. So if you want to get the previous version, yes, you can recall your previous version. So there are different version control systems are there. So SVN is one version control system, CVS is one version control system, and Git, like that, Git is also one version control system. So when you come to Git, so Git is a distributed version control system, unlike traditional system. So if you look into this, so this is the traditional system. So when you are using SVN subversion, so what will happen? So here different developers are working, and your code repository will be present in one system. So all the developers will commit your code to this system. But if this system crashes, so what will happen? So we will lose all the code. But when it comes to Git, so what will happen? Git is a distributed version control system. It's not a centralized one. So our SVN is a centralized version control system. So what we will do, so when you are working on a project, so if you are using SVN subversion CVS, so what will happen? So in one system we will install this SVN, and all the developers will commit to that system. It's a centralized traditional way. If that system is crashed, so we will lose our code. But when it comes to Git, it's a distributed version control system. So what will happen? Whenever you are installing the Git into your system, so it will create one local copy. Means sorry, it will create a one local repository. So each developer can commit his changes into your local repository, and after that you can push your changes to GitHub. So which is a cloud-based repository where you can store your code. So that is an advantage by using Git. So Git is not like a traditional system. It's a distributed system. See, whenever you install Git, so local repository will be created. So developer 1, developer 2, developer 3. So what will happen? So whenever you install Git, a local repository will be created. So first you will commit the code into your local repository, and from there you will push the code into remote repository. So see, so or else we can look into this one. See, till here. So what will happen? So the developer is working on this file. This developer is working on this file. So what they will do? First, they commit their code. So first, what they will do is commit. They will commit their code into local repository. So this developer is also commits his code to local repository. So see, both the developers will have a local repository. Whenever they are installing Git into their system, whenever they install the Git into their local system, so local repository will be created. So whenever they are saying commit, so their changes will be stored at your local repository. Whenever you are saying push, so all your changes will be moved to your Git repository. Git, sorry, GitHub repository. So GitHub is a cloud-based repository which is used to store your files. And when it comes to Git is a version control system. So what is a version control system? So version control system will track all your changes. Whenever you are making some commit, so your Git will create a snapshot for your files. Each file, each changes. So what is the use of version control system? So you can keep track of your changes. And if you want to revert back to the previous commit or other previous to previous commits, so you can revert the code to your previous or previous commits also. How you can able to revert to the previous commits? So your Git will create a one unique ID for each commit. So with that unique ID, you will able to revert back to your previous version. So that is the difference between Git and GitHub. So in our next videos, we'll discuss more. So first, what is a Git and what is a GitHub? So you should be clear. So Git is a version control system. GitHub is a cloud-based repository which will stores your all your files. So that is the difference. So how to move your code to local repository? So here I'm using IDE, one IDE. It might be STS or Eclipse. So here I am making some change, writing some code. So now I want to move my code to local repository. So what I need to do? Commit the code, commit. Then the code will be moved to local repository. When you are using push, so the code will be moved from local repository to your Git repository. Can I use commit and push? Yes, you can use commit and push at a time also. So what will happen when you are using commit and push both at a time? So what will happen? First, the code will be stored to local repository, and from local repository, it will be pushed to your Git repository. So if you are using only commit, so the code will move to your local Git repository. If you are using push, it will move to your GitHub repository. So hope this is clear. So we'll discuss more in next videos.